Hey everyone, and welcome back to Lauren's Take. It is officially PJO season 2 time. You know I am so excited about this, you all. I watched the first 2 episodes this morning. So I just got off of having 3 snow days, so I woke up a little earlier so that I could make sure I could watch both episodes before I had to go to work. And y'all, I can't wait to get into my thoughts. Please comment down below your thoughts. As I told you all in my most recent video, which is now my most watched, most liked video. So thank you to all of the folks that watched the Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping teaser trailer reaction. I was beyond shocked at how many people enjoyed the video. So excited reading all of your comments on that and seeing all of the love that that video got. I'm so excited to take it back to Percy Jackson season 2 and start doing our weekly episodes again of Lauren's Take, where I review the episodes that premiere. And since episode 1 and 2 came out today, I will be sitting and reviewing, giving you all my thoughts on the first 2 episodes. But again, please comment down below your thoughts. And as always, if you are not subscribed to Lauren's Take already, what are you doing? Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and let's get into it. Okay, so for season 2, where we are, for those who somehow are not in the realm of things, season 2 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, of course, covers Sea of Monsters, which is the second book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians book series. I actually just reread the book so that I could be prepared for season 2, and to also just make sure that I know everything that's going on in terms of plot. I reread them a while ago, and so I've been rereading each book as the new season comes out. I was excited to reread Percy Jackson and the Olympians at Sea of Monsters. And Sea of Monsters does not disappoint. It's the shortest book in the series, but what's funny is on Hulu it says that it's going to be 9 episodes, so I don't know if it's just carrying on from being, from season 1 in the episode titles, but I watched both of the episodes on Disney Plus this morning, as I said. Anyway, so I really loved how the first episode started with Grover in his search for Pan. I thought that was a really great touch, and also his running into different campers from Camp Half-Blood. I thought that was crazy because these are the rogue demigods, of course, that are actually now working with Luke and Kronos and that whole agenda situation. So I really thought that was kind of cool that Grover got to directly meet with them. And it also introduced the whole concept of something is going awry in terms of, Grover is trying to find Pan, but they were like, well, we're, trying to find it, and they thought Grover had it, meaning the Golden Fleece. And so I really enjoyed this kind of connection that they made. And that's actually like a really good segue. I think I might just like kind of talk about like really big things that I really enjoyed in the first 2 episodes rather than go through like a full like step-by-step of what happened in each episode, because that will make this video way too long and I don't want to make y'all suffer through too long of a video. But I think what was really great about how they kind of connected everything in this episode was just kind of like, or a lot of the changes that they made in episode 1 and in 2 in terms of what happened in the book. I think all of the changes made sense because they really wanted to like tie things in a better way that would actually flow better with the actual storyline, especially in terms of if you think about a quick segue into, after we see that whole scene with Grover and the demigods, or road demigods, and he is taken by the monster into Polyphemus's cave. Get our first look at Percy in the season. And what's really great about this is when we get to find out where Tyson has been this whole time. Tyson's been living with Percy and his mom because his mom found him. And it makes more sense and the big thing that I'm saying with this is they already know that Tyson is a Cyclops. If you remember in Sea of Monsters, we don't find out that Tyson is a Cyclops until Annabeth actually forces Percy to really look through the mist and acknowledge that he's a Cyclops. To be honest, if you thinking about all of the things that Percy went through in terms of, the whole year prior, the summer prior, it does make more sense in the plot for him to already know that Tyson is a Cyclops, and for Sally to know that he's a Cyclops, because Sally, truly truly cared about Tyson, wanted to make sure he was good. It made more sense for Tyson to live with them as well, so he wasn't continuing to live on the street. I really like this addition. I think that made sense to the plot, and I think a lot of people were that change as well. I also think what was really great was being able to see how they automatically jumped into the situation with the Gray sisters and then Annabeth coming in. So they kind of like cut all of the stuff that happened at school. So like Percy no longer had like the last day of school situation. It made sense. And I also, real quick with Tyson too, I really loved that they automatically showed him like tinkering with things and, you know, stuff like that, because I think those are like little nuances that you see throughout Sea of Monsters in terms of him working towards something. Because, of course, at the end of the book, Tyson makes this really cool watch that actually helps Percy and Annabeth win the chariot race at the end of the book. So I really like being able to see that kind of addition early, where he's already having like his little trinkets and little creations kind of all over the apartment. It makes more sense and things like that. So I really enjoyed having that aspect of Tyson, like his little characteristics being played out in the show as well. The Grey Sister scene was actually really, really fun. I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny. And really in the book, that scene is like really funny. And I think they did a phenomenal job with that. Like 30, 31, 75, 12, you know, what was cool is we were able to get that, you know, that situation and Percy like threatening to throw the eye out in order to get the coordinates of where Grover was. I thought that was great. And so I really, really loved that. But wait, let me back up, because there was so much Percy about that scene. Oh my God. I tremendously loved seeing all of the Percabeth, like the little things. And that also just makes me acknowledge that like Walker and Leah ate down. Like they ate down. I think that's the coolest part about being able to see these young actors grow. And, you know, because both of them, both Leah and Walker have been in different things since season 1 of Percy Jackson. Grown as people, you know, they're growing teenagers, right? And so we are getting to see that growth within Percy and Annabeth, and it makes so much sense. It meshes so beautifully together. Their chemistry is still top notch. So I really love seeing that whole connection between, you know, Percy and Annabeth, and how they automatically had that connection. And we had the mention to the picture. We saw Percy looking at the picture in his room. So I was glad they were still able to incorporate that. Because of course that is a scene that we get at school, and he's looking at his picture in a notebook. But, you know, they tried to calm it down because he had a picture of Grover too, you know. But, you know, he was staring at that one of Annabeth a little longer, you know. That's the thing. That's what we're talking about. Yes, period. Being able to see that conversation. That was like one of the clips that have been released early. And I was already crying laughing when I saw Tyson like literally say, he was like, "Oh, you're Annabeth. Percy talks about you all the time." And then Percy's like, "Tyson, like, why are you saying that?" And then he was like, "Well, you stare at her picture all the time, right?" That had me dying laughing, because Daniel, no, it's so funny. He is such a great Tyson. Like, no notes with that casting whatsoever. Daniel is slaying as Tyson, and we already get to see so much of like what makes Tyson Tyson in just the first few minutes of the show. And that's why I was automatically excited. You know, Walker, Leah, Arian, Dior, Charlie, everyone was already saying that he was like such a phenomenal addition to the cast in terms of playing Tyson. But like to actually see it, it's so much more justice done to the character. I'm so happy. No notes whatsoever. And so I really enjoyed being able to see that whole banter, that whole little conversation where we got to see what was going on without too much being revealed. And it was also just really great to be able to get all of that so far. I also really loved actually how when they were on their way back to camp, on their way to camp, that's when we had the last Dragonian scene, and then the whole scene of Annabeth granting Tyson access into camp and all of those things. And also this quick reason of why she doesn't have the best relationship with Cyclops. Like, of course, we don't know the full reason yet. But I think it was really great how they addressed it in the show as well. So there were just like a lot of things like in terms of timing and in times of just like shifting things around, but they got all of the main important points from the novel into the show. And so the first episode was phenomenal in that regard. And then of course we had to have Clary. Clary, she gets on my nerve, you know. It's just like every time, but I think it was perfect because that's exactly what happened in the book. I think it was just again slight change of setting where they were in Camp Half-Blood, and how they changed it in the show was while the last Dragonians were attacking the backside of camp, where Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson were directly coming into Camp Half-Blood, Luke was at the front of camp near Thalia's tree trying to poison the tree. So the fact that they see, or that Percy and Annabeth and Tyson directly saw Luke poisoning the tree, having that moment again of just like Luke being upset that he's upsetting Annabeth, but also like wanting her to kind of go on his side. I thought that was like such a slight little thing that I think both Charlie and Leah did such a phenomenal job of demonstrating. And like Walker as Percy, like being so just like not shocked whatsoever. I think it was just that situation of, she was like, we're both Thalia's friends. Like, why would he do that? This doesn't make sense. Like, why would he poison the tree? Why would he do that? And then Percy's like, that's not Luke. Like, you gotta, get over the situation of you, like, still thinking that he's there. And so I think that they did such a wonderful job with that, and like being able to acknowledge Annabeth's just like, she's in this state of just like, what is happening? Like, Thalia's tree is poisoned. Luke is, no longer there for her. Like, she's really in this situation where she's dealing with a lot. And so I think that was like the kind of the beginning of us really seeing what was going on with Annabeth, because I don't remember if it was like at this point by now, did she mention Space Mountain? I think she did. She had mentioned Space Mountain. So she went to Disney World. She went to, she watched the movies, did a lot of the things that Percy had wanted her to do, a lot of the things he got to do growing up. But we could see that a lot of those things didn't go as well as she had hoped. So I really think they did a wonderful job of paying attention to this and really making sure that attention to the struggles that Annabeth directly is going through, and like Percy on this other end is like, what is going on? Like, how is this, like, no, we need to be talking to each other. Why aren't we talking? And this is where the communication thing came up as well. So I really loved how, I'm talking like, I'm all over the place. Sorry, y'all. But I really loved how they went from this thing to this thing, and I think it was beneficial to the overall plot in the end. And so that's something that I really, really enjoyed seeing them kind of flesh out, as well as bring in the Tyson of it all, and how Annabeth is trying to deal with this, deal with all of her emotions, but also have the situation of Tyson being there, being the symbol of a Cyclops, and what that means for her as well. I really also just think that, their argument, later on. Oh, wait, this is important because, we also get our first introduction to Tantalus. We get we get to see Mr. D again in the show. Of course, Chiron is already gone. Tantalus is already taken over as the new activities director. Clarice is, being annoying as always and whatnot. But then also Tyson was claimed as Poseidon's son, especially because they were really about to kill Tyson, and it was a horrible situation. But Poseidon was like, no, you can't kill him. That is my child. And then we automatically get the Percy embarrassment of it all. And then also seeing Tyson's like sadness about that, because he was like, I'm no longer alone. Like, you're my brother. And then Percy's like, no, we're friends, we're not brothers, he was like, no, that's my dad, and things like that. Like, it was such they were just playing that so well. I think this is just one of the greatest things about the show, in terms of, they may change this thing, they may change that thing, but like the main things are so there. And I love seeing that everywhere, or in every single part of the show. And we saw so much of the relationship building and the internal things that the characters are going through so well in the first episode as well as the second episode. And that's something that I just really enjoyed seeing overall. I think it was also really great to be able to see the Percivus scene that happens when Percy, after Tyson is claimed as Poseidon's son, how Percy is dealing with that. And then they get in a little argument and talk about how Tyson is like really upset about the whole thing, in terms of Percy not being the happiest about it. And then Annabeth is like, hey, I wanted us to go, talk about everything. And then he was like, I'll have to, you may have to wait a little bit. I was in a conversation with Tyson and everything. And Annabeth dealing with that situation. Oh my gosh. Walker and Leah ate down in this scene, because I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good, because Annabeth is in this like mind space of just really just not knowing how to navigate this thing or navigate this thing. I think it was just really beneficial to be able to see her like doing the torment of trying to open up, trying to really make sense of her feelings, because if in Mark of Athena, we find out that by this point, Annabeth likes Percy. So we could see her like dealing with the fact that she liked him and also wanted to make sure that their friendship was good because they both had just had a tough argument. They haven't been exactly in sync. And then they get in a bigger argument because, they talk about the golden drachma situation and how Percy had just gotten a drachma. And so she was like, why didn't you call me? And then he was like, well, I didn't have a drachma until literally this morning. And then he was like, well, you had at least two. So why didn't you contact me? And so that whole situation was just like insane because I was like, oh my gosh, not both of them like wanting to call but not knowing how to call because both of them were going through different things and not being able to fully tell each other what was going on. And so they're in this already like weird space because they're like, so many things are changing around us. You're changing, I'm changing, like what's happening? But feelings are being had and we don't know what to do with our feelings. And so I did watch some of the press interviews, and this is something Walker and Leah were talking like extensively about in terms of really navigating that for Percy and Annabeth. And so I loved seeing a lot of their discussions because this is not one of their only discussions that they have about it. It gets worse in episode 2, and I can't wait to talk about that in a second. But I really think they did such justice to that overall conversation to really show how Percy is feeling and really how Annabeth is feeling. This is the greatest part of the show, being able to put us in that situation of having that third person perspective. And that's something a lot of the cast were saying tremendously. And it's true. I think we see it even more so in this season because now that we really know the characters, is not just introducing them. We know all of these characters, and now we're trying to see them get fleshed out, seeing them grow, seeing them dealing with things that are new and different because so many things have changed since the last time we saw all of these characters. I really think they did a wonderful job with the buildup of that whole situation. And then we find out how we can save Cam through, of course, Percy having another dream of Grover, and then a whole wedding dress situation. Yes, that was so fun. And then Grover confirming what those coordinates mean of 30, 31, 75, 12. Percy wakes up, realizes on the map that's the coordinates in order to find him in the Sea of Monsters. So they were able to go talk to Annabeth, and they were able to, he was like, this is kind of my truce. I know how we can save the camp, but really save Thalia. And so I really loved that, and that's how the first episode ended. And the first episode was beautiful. It was just great. I was just smiling, squealing, doing all of the things while I watched the first episode. But the second episode, girl, let's get into it. Y'all, the thing about the second episode, I would say the second episode probably didn't change as much from the book. I think a lot of the things that happened in the second episode pretty much lined up with where it lined up in the book because, of course, the main thing in episode 2 was the chariot race. But what I did like is that we got to see a lot of the build-up towards it in terms of the whole conversations that were being had with Percy and Annabeth trying to get Tantalus to care about this thing and care about that thing. But they have put Percy on Cabin on it with Tyson. And so it was so funny, that whole situation, because then Percy and Annabeth had to come up with a whole plan where she could go talk to Chiron. And when we had that conversation with Annabeth and Chiron, that was such an important thing because that's where, when we got that situation where Chiron was like, Percy cannot go on this quest. Like, no matter what happens, Percy cannot go on this quest. That is a little different from the book in terms of Percy or Chiron had just asked Annabeth to, keep him safe because we knew of what was going on. But I think what was great in the show is that he was like, no, Percy cannot go on this quest whatsoever because of the other thing that Percy could not know. And of course, if you really know what that means, that's of course a great prophecy that is going to actually be told in season 2. So I'm really excited to see how they get to that point, because even in Sea of Monsters, Annabeth pretty much tells him the gist of the prophecy. She just doesn't tell him the full thing and tells him that most likely he is the person in there, but we're not sure. And of course, at the end of Sea of Monsters, with Thalia being woken up again and back fully alive, is that situation of Titan's curse of like, is it Percy? Is it Thalia? Who's it going to be? And so I'm really excited about how they tackled this in season 2. Wow. In episode 2, I think that was really, really great. I think that whole conversation between Annabeth and Chiron was so important. And also I loved how Annabeth, always being 6 steps ahead. That is like one line from season 1 that Luke said that is like such a, like, it's so true. And I cannot remember for a fact if it is in the book. I don't think it's in the book. I don't remember that being said in the book. But like Amber and I rewatched season 1 in preparation for season 2 because of course it's like you got to know the show's lore as well as the book lore because there's slight differences. And so that is something that like every time I watch episode 2 and I see Luke saying that about Annabeth, like I always think about that because she's always thinking, she's always trying to see what can she do to be ahead of the game. And so she was already looking around the office to try to find things that may come up later, and that actually ended up helping them once the Synthalian birds came and messed up the chariot race. But before that, I think it was really great to be able to see the whole conversation between Chiron and Annabeth and how that ended up causing so much conflict for our beautiful Percy. I also really quick want to acknowledge something. There were like a few things that happened in episode 2 that I was so excited about. For example, Walker perfected the Percy mischievous grin, smirk, whatever you want to call it. He perfected it because I saw it like 2 or 3 times in episode 2. And it, like, when I tell you, if that boy is not Percy Jackson, it made me so happy. I was just like, this is perfection. Like, what is going on? I was so excited about that, y'all, because it was just like the, you know, like the sly smile. Like, it's so, oh my gosh, like it just like it kind of reminded me of some of the fan art, like the old fan art of Percy. Like, I was so hyped. I was like, oh my gosh, he got it down. So these are like the little like acting nuances. Like, they've grown and they've really become their characters to the points that like they can do little things like that. So Walker, you ate with that, my dude. I also really wanted to talk about actually the introduction of a character that I don't think I saw this coming at all. But Chris Rodriguez was in this episode. I swear Chris was in the first season. I think he was, but I don't think he was like officially, but the importance of Chris and Clarice, like that establishment, I was freaking out, y'all. It was so exciting because I was like, this is something that is like so like it's so niche within the series because it happens a lot later. But the fact that they're sowing the seeds, it got your girl hyped. And also for the Hephaestus chariot, y'all, I'm losing my mind. Like, the Hephaestus chariot, we didn't get an official look at Beckendorf, but there was a black guy who was on the Hephaestus chariot. So that makes me think that this actor is a stand-in for the potential of Beckendorf really becoming an eventual series regular in the show, because it's like I personally got confirmation. I saw that the producers were saying that they are going to be making Selena and Charles huge parts of the show. So most likely season 3 or season 4, we're probably going to get those castings. But I love those little things that they did. I think that was just like, y'all really trying to feed the book fans, and I am here for it. One of the big things also with the whole thing with Clarice and Chris, one thing that I really did like about this, because at this point, we've only really seen like Clarice vulnerable in like one moment, and that was of course that scene in season 1, episode 2, where Percy breaks the spirit that Ares got for her, and she was like, no, like that whole situation. Yeah, so this scene was really great because it was her really trying to kind of let her guard down and really try to have like this little thing with Chris or whatever, and he was like, back off, like I don't really want to do this. And the look of sadness on her face, I was like, oh my gosh, it's that, like, I appreciated it. And I do have to give Dior her props because I think she did a phenomenal job with already kind of giving us a little bit more empathy for her to like kind of feel for our girl. Clarice is not all bad. She does piss me off. Don't get me wrong. But inside, there's a lot that she's trying to prove, and there's a lot that she's trying to grapple with because she's gone through a ton, and she's always in that situation where she's never enough. And so already having that little nuance, especially with Chris, someone who is going to end up meaning a tremendous amount to her and is such an important part in the show as well. I think it was really great to be able to have that addition into the show, which then takes me to a lot of different things. And y'all, I'm looking at my notes because while I was watching the episode, I started like just talking to my notes. So I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. Like I was screaming at the TV and then also writing it down so I can remember to put it in here. But like one of the biggest things that I definitely said I really loved the vulnerability for Clarice, but also just getting into the chariot scene. That chariot scene, amazing. Like the cast kept talking about, I would say the cast, even Rick was like, y'all, the chariot scene is it. That chariot scene really looked like it was right from the book. And they put it on screen. And I was here for it. I've also seen like a lot of like fellow demigods of mine being able to be on the set filming that scene, and I was like, where was I? Where's my invitation? So y'all gotta get me into season 3 because what the heck? But I was so excited to see the chariot scene. The chariots were amazing. They looked beautiful. And again, coming back to Tyson in terms of how he was able to get that chariot up to where it needed to go. That's also that connection to Beckendorf, of course, because Beckendorf is like the only other camper that like gives Tyson the time of day. So then being able to see Tyson's ability to do such amazing, beautiful construction and work, it was so great because they were able to, he and Percy were able to do such a great job with Poseidon's chariot. And so love that. That was great. I love this. But this is where I just got into the conversation because there was so much. You know, Percy was like, remember, don't touch Annabeth, right? This is him talking to Tyson. He's like, that's my girl. We got to make sure she's good because we have this whole plan. They had the whole plan, of course, to one of them when this is after Annabeth has had the conversation with Chiron and how he's told her, under in no circumstances should Percy be going on this quest. And Annabeth said, well, we should like separate. We shouldn't, ride together because Percy was like, oh, you mean we, when we went? And she was like, no, I think both of us should ride separately. So then we have like double our chances of winning. He was like, oh, that's smart. I love that. He's like, yeah, of course he thought about that. Like he didn't doubt her at all. And it's like the pain, because Annabeth, our girl, for her to have to go through this whole situation, I was like, y'all are putting my girl through it. And also, Leah does such a phenomenal job of really demonstrating the turmoil that Annabeth is really going through at this point of, like, she loves her friend. She, is really valuing the friendship that she has with Percy because Percy genuinely is, like, her one main friend at this point and really her best friend. Also the boy that she has a strong crush on, right? And also, but she also sees where Chiron comes. Someone, Chiron is coming from in terms of keeping him safe. And of course, her love for Percy is that situation of not wanting to put him in harm's way and her wanting to hold her promise. So she is really in a torn position. So of course, when she is on the chariot with her sibling, Bronte, and Bronte is like, she was like, okay, if the Poseidon chariot comes near us, you need to take it out. And then she was like, what? I thought you and Percy were tight. And then she was like, exactly, that's why I asked you to do it. Because she personally could not do it for multiple reasons. So I love that like double meaning situation of, she's not going to be the one directly to do it, but it's also because she genuinely needs to not make sure he is not going on this quest. And then to take that to the next step, I'll come back to the chariot scene, but then when Clarice, of course, wins, and she has to pick, she ends up getting the quest and everything, and she has to pick two campers to go with her. She picks Annabeth, and then Annabeth has a conversation where Clarice pretty much telling her, do not pick Percy, do not pick Percy. And then she's like, oh, okay, let's figure, I guess I just have to go with whoever she picks. And then she picks Chris. So many things there. The look of despair on Walker's face as Percy, I swear. I was like, you're putting my Percy through it. Like, oh my gosh. And it was so rough because I was like, Percy, read between the lines. She would not you. But he was so upset. And then the conversation, I got ahead of myself earlier when I said the wedding dress scene had happened earlier. No, the wedding dress scene happened then. After Percy was already mad and he was like, you know what? I'm just going to go by myself. He talks to Grover, and this is the whole wedding dress scene. That was hilarious, by the way. And Grover's like, you're angry. What's going on? About the whole Annabeth situation. He was just like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, I don't know what's going on. But he was like, okay, I'm not taking sides here. But let's think about it. Did you not think that Annabeth maybe tried to protect you? I don't know. It could be that situation. It could go either way. It is like that, like, just think about it. He was like, hold up. Maybe. I love that Grover is there. We love Grover. He always spreading the wisdom. Grover is such a great guy. Ariana is such an amazing actor and doing such a phenomenal job as Grover. So I really, really love that whole situation of Grover being the voice of reason. But even coming back real quick to the chariot scene, and then I'll come back to finish up the episode. The Stymphalian birds coming and like attacking them and everything, and Clarice keep going, her keep going to the point that she wins the race. But then, Percy and Annabeth jumping out, or Tyson as well joining them going to Chiron's office, getting the boombox and playing the song out loud, the high screeching sound. I was like, yes, this is iconic, straight from the book. So I was so excited that they incorporated that. I knew they were going to incorporate that, and I could somehow forgotten that scene had happened. But then when I reread the book, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like directly from the show, or directly from the book. So I really love that they had that scene. It was really great. Budget went up. I think a lot of people have acknowledged this. I think I even said it when looking at a lot of the teaser trailers and things like that. It is just a lot going on in season 2, and I love it. I think everything makes sense. The acting is superb. Everything is just going beautifully. And also, I also love too, we gotta talk about the Hermes scene, because this is really like, Percy is, about to leave, trying to, take on everything, or take on the next part of the quest, or go on the quest on his own. And he is talking to his dad, praying to his dad, hoping that his dad will approve of him going on this quest. And I really love that touch. I thought that was really sweet and really beautiful. And then in comes our favorite, Lin-Manuel Miranda as Hermes, slaying. And like, when I tell y'all, and I had just watched episode 6 of season 1 yesterday with Amber. And when I tell y'all, the thing that I love so much about Lin-Manuel as Hermes is how he really gets it. Like, he gets it. Like, I'm looking right in the camera. He gets it. And I am so happy he gets it. In terms of just, because he's kind of played this role twice, in a sense of playing Hamilton and writing Hamilton. He's in that situation of being a father, trying to do the best for his son, but giving his son bad advice, or not being the best father he possibly could have been, and then having his son have something bad happen, right? So, and of course, Percy Jackson, Luke is literally being controlled by Kronos, right? But then in Hamilton, he tells Philip, do this, and then Philip dies. It's like that whole situation of just like, Lynn is just, keeps playing these dads who are just not the best dads, but are trying their best. And they had that iconic scene in the book where he's like, family, if I've learned one thing, it's like, family is worth protecting. No matter how angry they make you, no matter how frustrating they get, like, you have to fight for your family. And oh my gosh, I was almost in tears watching that. Like, I was in the middle making eggs like this morning, but I was like, oh my gosh. And also, there was this point, and this is probably like my favorite, and this is hilarious that this is like my favorite scene in the whole episode, and it was probably like one of my favorite scenes that they have filmed yet. But it was the scene still with Hermes and Percy. And, by this point, Percy is like, he was like, well, I want you to do the same, like, we want the same thing. Like, I want you to save your friend. But that was a double meaning, of course. And I love that they keep doing the double meanings because symbolism. But I also just really love that, of course, the friend that not Grover, I said the name, Percy's trying to save Grover, of course, but of course Hermes meant Luke because Luke is still, Percy's friend, but Percy's in that situation of like really truly believing that Luke is no longer there and in there for him to truly save the whole situation. And he was like, why do you do this? Like, why do you do this? And then Hermes is like, he's my son. And he was like, yeah, but he's, doing all these things. He hates you and everything. He's like, and he's my son. That hit me because I said, who? The pain, the sadness in Hermes in that moment. Because we see that in the book as well of just like how Hermes he wishes he did so much more when it comes to Luke. That it's such a sad moment to see. And I think Lynn just did a phenomenal job of capturing that. And I don't think enough people have been talking about that. Like, I think he really ate down when it came to really showing how Hermes feels so bad about all of the stuff that has happened between Luke and him and Luke's mom and everything that happened in that whole situation. And us, the people who have not read the books, of course, being in this position of just like, what is happening? Like, what is this thing? But like the book lovers know that like this is such an important part of the overall story in terms of by the end of like really wanting to save Luke, the boy behind all of this loss, all of this brokenness and everything. I love that. I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful touch. But let's finish this up because I've been ranting, but there was so much in the first 2 episodes, y'all. But like at the end, of course, Percy and Annabeth are in this situation, but Percy is pretty much like, did Chiron say something to you? And she was like, oh my gosh. She was like, yeah, and they try to work it out, but then they get in that situation where the Tantalus comes around and he had already said, well, I have the right to kill you all on sight because now it's actual law. You're not supposed to be out of your cabins. You're not supposed to, do these things, whatever. Of course, Annabeth follows Percy in his boat because, of course, she doesn't want to get killed. And, Tyson comes out of nowhere and knocks him out of the way, Tantalus out of the way so that, they could all get away safely and try to sail towards the Princess Andromeda. So I thought that whole scene was amazing. And then she was like, oh my gosh, we genuinely broke the law. Like, we can never return back to camp. And, like, Percy's like, like, I can't even worry about it right now. And that's a big point in the book as well. So I thought how they handled that was so, so good. So, yeah. All my thoughts. Oh my gosh. So y'all, I have to say episodes 1 and 2 were such a great start to season 2 of Percy Jackson. I had high expectations because I knew that they can meet them, and they beat my expectations. I am so proud of this cast. Y'all ate down. The cast, the crew, the production team, Rick, everybody, Becky, everybody who had anything to do with season 2 of Percy Jackson. Y'all deserve your applause. You deserve your flowers. I'm throwing them to you. You did the darn thing. I cannot wait for the rest of season 2 of Percy Jackson to, grace our screens. I'm just sad I had to wait another week for the next episode because the first 2 episodes were so darn good. But that concludes this video, y'all. Please, again, comment down below your comments on episodes 1 and 2. That's all I got. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. I love making these review videos. Hopefully next one will be a little shorter, but we had to play some catch up and we had to just break down everything that happened and all of the really great things. And if I forgot anything, again, comment down below and I'll tell you my thoughts. But yeah, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Don't give a thumbs down, that's just rude. Also subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And again, I will make sure to post this video next week again, or post my next review next week. I'm probably going to be watching all of the episodes early in the morning, filming in the afternoon, and posting it by night. So yeah, can't wait to see y'all in the next one. All right, bye-bye.